What's going on, everyone? Happy Friday to everyone. Hopefully everyone is doing well, staying safe, healthy. If you had to take a COVID test, hopefully you have tested negative. It is time now for this special Friday edition of the Wastewater Update for Friday, August 11th, 2023. Normally we would do the Wastewater Update on Sunday through the CDC site. We'll do one this week. However, today we are doing a special wastewater update where we'll take a look at other things such as influenza, HMPV, norovirus, Mpox, RSV, and of course, most importantly, coronavirus. Why are we doing this? I'm seeing so many comments on social media, public, all around. People are saying, oh, so-and-so has the summer flu. I want to challenge you on that and prove to you that the big thing that's rising right now is COVID. Yes, the virus people don't like to talk about anymore. Oh, COVID. That reminds me of when we had to go into quarantine and stay home in 2020. Yeah, you had to do that, but guess what? I'm sorry. It hasn't gone away, and I'm sorry. If you haven't noticed, hospitalizations are going up again in the United States. Cases are going up again in the United States and around the world, and long COVID is a real issue causing long-term issues, and that count of the number of people who have long COVID is continuing to rise. So, sorry, you may want COVID to be gone and over, but guess what? The data says it's not over, and it's not much safer now than it was in 2020. In fact, it may be less safe because hardly anyone wears a mask now. Let's take a look at the data. We'll start off in the Northeast. We'll make our way south and west. You know the deal. We're going to fit as many sites as we can within a 20-minute period. Hopefully we can get through all this without this website freezing up. Tried a different browser, so we'll see what happens here. When I use Google Chrome browser, it just freezes up with this website after just a couple sites, wastewater sites, for whatever reason. I can't figure it out. All right, Portland, Maine. Big tourist area in the summertime. COVID, rapidly rising at this time. Influenza, look at this. It's not being detected. RSV, not being detected. HMPV, no longer an issue. It has dropped from where it was earlier in the summer. Mpox, not detected. Norovirus, not being detected. So if you are in Maine right now, and someone says they have a summer flu, tell them, well, no, influenza is not being detected, but COVID is on the rise, especially in Portland, Maine, where we just looked at. Let's go down to Dover, New Hampshire. Dover, New Hampshire, rapid rise in COVID, rapidly going up. This is a wastewater site with 30,000 people. Influenza, the value is 0. RSV, the value is 0. HMPV, the value is now 0. There was some issues with that earlier in summer. Mpox, not an issue. Norovirus has dropped at this time. Let's do Boston now. We got to do Boston. Boston, this is a big wastewater site. 2.4 million people. So if the summer flu or influenza, the regular influenza, if it was being detected right now, it'd be showing up here. 2.4 million people. COVID, rising steady to almost near a rapid rise now. What's the number for influenza? What's that little circle right there? That's a big fat 0. Influenza is not being detected right now. Could the common cold and other stuff be going around? Sure, but it's more likely that if someone's sick right now in the Boston metro area, there's a good chance it's coronavirus. RSV, 0. HMPV, there was some issues with that back in July. It has dropped down to 0. From time to time, it does crop up. Mpox, not detected. That's good to see. In a big population, you're not seeing Mpox at this time. Norovirus, it has leveled off a little bit from a drop. Full disclaimer, like the CDC website, any of these wastewater sites I'm showing here does not include people who have private septic systems, private sewer systems, the people who live on the end of a dirt road and they're not connected to a sewer system. There's a lot of regions like that. Some towns don't even have sewer systems. Let's do another Massachusetts. This is not far from Worcester, Massachusetts, and you can see here there was a rapid rise in COVID, then it dropped, but now it's starting to rise again. So that's relatively concerning. Influenza not being detected, RSV not being detected, HMPV not being detected, Mpox not an issue, and norovirus has leveled off after a relatively long-term drop. All right, let's go over to, how about we go back up north again to Vermont? What's going on in Burlington at this time? Rapid rise in COVID, no influenza, RSV, HMPV, Mpox issues at this time. Norovirus, it's starting to rise there. Now moving over to New York State. I can't show you New York City on this website, but what I can show you is a couple things. First, I can show you Oswego, New York. New site, and it's done nothing but rise since it started on July 31st. Influenza, not an issue. RSV, not an issue. HMPV, not an issue. Mpox, not an issue. Norovirus, it did start off at low levels. Here's the other thing I can do for you. Can't show you New York City, but we can come up here to Newark, New Jersey, which is just across the river, and we can see COVID. It's kind of going all over the place, but the overall trajectory since July 11th is upward. Influenza. There was some flu being detected here. This is a big wastewater site, 1.5 million people. So yes, you would expect in a big population, you might find some flu. The fact we saw none up in Boston, that was relatively impressive. But close to New York City, even in the summer months, it's not out of the normal to find a few flu cases. I mean, you're not talking a lot. The dominating factor is coronavirus. RSV is not an issue. HMPV not an issue. Mpox not an issue. Norovirus, it's there, but it's not rising at this time. It is stable for the moment. I suspect when we go down to Florida, we may find a few flu cases down that way as well. Let's go closer to a short point. How about Belmar, New Jersey? Here you go. Coronavirus. Rapidly rising. Now it has dropped on the most recent update. Influenza, RSV, HMPV, and Mpox not an issue. Norovirus is starting to rise at this time. All right, crossing the Delaware River. Let's check on Pennsylvania. We're going to do two sites on Pennsylvania. Chester County, Pennsylvania, 220,000 people. There is now a rise in coronavirus. Influenza not being detected. RSV not an issue. HMPV not an issue. Mpox not an issue. And norovirus is dropping at this time, so that is good to see. And now let's check on the capital of Pennsylvania, Dauphin County, Harrisburg. COVID is rapidly rising at this time. Influenza not an issue. RSV not an issue. HMPV no issues. Mpox no issues. And norovirus, it has been dropping. Now it's leveled off, and on the most recent update, it rose ever so slightly. Let's check down here in Delaware. Seaford, Delaware. For some reason, there is a rapid drop in COVID. I don't know why. That is just coming up, just literally straight down like a plane would be crashing. It could be legitimate. Let's wait and see what future updates say. Influenza, not an issue. RSV, not an issue. HMPV, there's been a few minor issues at times. Mpox, not an issue. And norovirus is dropping at this time. Moving over now to Eastern Maryland. COVID is rapidly rising in Hollywood, Maryland. 55,000 population at this wastewater site. Influenza, RSV, HMPV, and Mpox all not being detected. Norovirus at this time is dropping, so that's good to see. All right, now let's move west a little bit more, shall we? Let's check in with Youngstown, Ohio. You may remember from the pandemic update, if you were following me, I want to say almost a month ago now, there were some issues in Youngstown, Ohio, with a Mpox case that was detected back in June 20th. Well, that's not being detected anymore. RSV is not being detected. Influenza is not being detected. HMPV is not an issue now. It was earlier in the summer. Norovirus is starting to rise pretty quickly. And look at this. Coronavirus is going straight up. That's not good to see at all. Let's do another site in Ohio. How about we come to Akron? And wow, COVID is rapidly rising in Akron, but flu is not being detected. No summer flu there. Taking a look here at RSV, not an issue. HMPV, not an issue. Mpox, none being detected. And norovirus is not being detected at this time. We will do some more Great Lakes in just a little bit. Right now, let's go southward, shall we? We'll go down to North Carolina next. Let's see what's going on in Winston-Salem. COVID is rapidly rising. Influenza is not an issue. RSV is not an issue. HMPV is not an issue. Mpox, not rising at the moment. There is no Mpox. Norovirus has gone flat at this time. Now let's go down and take a look at the wastewater sites down near Atlanta, Georgia. We'll just do one or two here. And we'll take a look up near Roswell, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And you can see here, 189,000 population. And currently at this time, COVID is rising overall as a trajectory. You can see here, it started rising back in mid to late June. And it's continuing to rise after a brief drop. Influenza not being detected. RSV is not an issue. HMPV not an issue. Mpox not being detected at this time. And norovirus is not an issue at this time. All right, let's go down to Florida. Tallahassee, that's a relatively new site. Should we look at it? Why not? Tallahassee at this time is dropping. Influenza not detected. There was some RSV being detected, but that is no longer an issue. HMPV is not an issue. Mpox, not much of an issue. And norovirus is rapidly rising at this time. Now let's move down to Orlando, Florida. This is important. We'll take a look at the site closest to Walt Disney World, and we'll choose this one right here, South Orange County, Florida. 183,000 people, and COVID, it is starting to rise again. It had a little bit brief drop. Now it's going back to rise. No influenza being detected. RSV is not being detected now. It was a little bit of an issue earlier. HMPV, not an issue. Mpox, not an issue. And norovirus, after a slow drop, is a little flat at this time. Now let's go down to Miami. There's some big wastewater sites in the Miami area. Let's just do South Miami, I guess. Yeah, here we go. 920,000 people here, so almost 1 million people. COVID, it is rising. It slowed a little bit, but now it's starting to rise again. Influenza, there was a little influenza detected back in July. RSV, there is still some issues with that going on. HMPV, not an issue now. Mpox, none being detected. And norovirus is dropping at this time, though its level is higher than what we have seen in other areas. All right, continuing back north, let's take a look at Houston and Dallas, Texas. As you can see here, closest to, or just northwest of Houston, I guess I should say. You can see here, Woodlands is this wastewater site. 65,000 people. And COVID, it's rising at this time. It's continuing to rise. Influenza was a little detected back in July. RSV had a little detection in early summer. HMPV, not an issue. Mpox, not an issue. And norovirus is dropping at this time. Now let's take a look at Dallas before we continue back up to, we'll go to Chicago area after this. Dallas, Texas. This is a newer wastewater site. 270,000 population. And COVID, it did drop a little slightly, but now it's back to rising again. Influenza, RSV, HMPV, all not being detected. Look at this. Ho ho. Not good. As of August 2nd, there was a detection of a monkeypox, Mpox case. So that's not good. Norovirus is dropping at this time, so that is good to see. So an Mpox case there. I just want to go to one more wastewater site here. Garland, Texas, 200,000 population. And I just wanted to see Mpox. And look at this, no Mpox detected there. Norovirus dropping. RSV no longer an issue. HMPV no longer an issue. Influenza not an issue. And COVID is rising at this time. Alright, let's go up to the Great Lakes, shall we? And let's take a look at Chicago. This is an important one. You can see here. We can't actually do Cook County. We can go west of there now. And Dubois, which is 86,000 population, rising for COVID, no influenza issues. There was a brief RSV issue in July. HMPV, not an issue now. Mpox, no issues detected. And norovirus dropping, and then it started to rise again on the most recent updates. Let's go up here. Can we do Wisconsin? Yes, we can do one area in rural Wisconsin. 44,000 population, though. It's a newer wastewater site. Started back in June. And look at this. It's been rising pretty much ever since the end of June. Influenza not detected. RSV not detected. HMPV, Mpox not an issue. Norovirus is dropping at this time. And now let's make our way westward a little bit. We will do Minnesota. Let's take a look here. How about we come down here to Rochester, Minnesota. COVID rising. Influenza not an issue. RSV, a couple times this summer there's been a few cases being detected in wastewater. HMPV not an issue. Mpox not an issue. And norovirus has been dropping in this area. Now we're going to make our way down to, let's see here, where do we want to look at next? How about we look at Iowa before we will then go to the West Coast and do some big wastewater sites. Iowa. This is Coralville, Iowa, and you can see here, 23,000 population, rapidly rising for COVID. Influenza. There was a little influenza detected here back in July, but it's back down to 0 now. RSV, similar deal, back down to 0. And you can see here, HMPV is not an issue, Mpox, not an issue. Norovirus is steadily to moderately rising at this time. All right, making our way out west. Real quickly, let's do a stop off in Kansas. Kansas at this time. COVID is actually dropping here. That's good to see. This is 47,000 population. Influenza, not an issue. RSV, not an issue. HMPV, not an issue. And you can see here, Mpox not being detected. Norovirus is dropping, but it has slightly leveled off on the most recent update. All right, continuing out west, let's go to some big wastewater sites. Los Angeles. COVID at this particular site is dropping at this time. Influenza not detected. RSV not detected. HMPV not an issue. And Mpox is not an issue currently. Norovirus is flat. But let's go to another Los Angeles site. Here's another one with 3.5 million people. This one, however, is rapidly rising. Influenza, not an issue. RSV, not an issue. HMPV, not an issue. Mpox, not an issue. Norovirus, it is starting to slightly rise in this area. And let's go up to San Francisco, where there are a ton of wastewater sites. We'll just pick 2 of them. Let's do Oklahoma first. Oakland, California first. I wish I could show you Oklahoma, but I don't think there are any Oklahoma sites on this website. We'll check before we finish the video. Oakland is rapidly rising at this time. That's not good. Influenza, not an issue. It's down to 0. RSV did have a brief issue in July, back down to 0. HMPV not being detected. Mpox, no issues. And norovirus is dropping at this time. Now let's go over across the bay. Let's go closer to San Francisco. Here we go. San Francisco, Oceanside. Rapidly rising for COVID. There have been on and off very low prevalences of influenza. RSV, it's there as well. Low numbers. And HMPV, again, low numbers, but that overall has been dropping. Mpox is not an issue. And as you see here, norovirus is slowly starting to rise at this time. We could spend all day with the wastewater sites in California, but we are not going to do that. We're going to do 2 more wastewater sites, and there you go. Oklahoma. We don't have any sites there. We're going to do 2 more. We're going to do Salt Lake City, and then I think we're going to go to Colorado. And as you can see here, Salt Lake City, Utah. It is starting to, it was rising. On the most recent update, it's dropped a little bit. That could just be noise. We'll have to see what happens for COVID. Influenza, not an issue. RSV, there have been a few minor issues for that this summer. HMPV has now dropped to 0. Mpox, not an issue. Norovirus has started to drop a little slower than what it was. It was dropping pretty steadily, but now it's kind of trying to level off now, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Let's go over to Colorado now, shall we? And you can see here in Colorado, we have South Parker, Colorado. Let's take a look at this one. You can see wastewater for COVID. It's dropped, then it started to rise a little bit. On the most recent update, it dropped again. Influenza, not an issue. RSV, not an issue. HMPV, not an issue. Mpox, nothing. Norovirus has dropped. So, as you can see, folks, influenza. In the places that are seeing influenza, they are in tiny numbers at this time. I know we didn't do everywhere. I didn't do every state. You know what? Let's do one more. I want to be fair because I do get questions saying, why don't I do such and such state? Let's just briefly take a look at Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham, Alabama is rapidly rising for COVID. No influenza, no RSV, no HMPV, no Mpox, and for norovirus at this time, it is dropping. Alrighty, folks, I hope I covered enough areas. I hope I proved the point that influenza is not much of an issue right now, and that COVID is rising. If I didn't get to your state or your area, apologies, and let's be honest here. As you see on the map, I'll zoom it out again. You can see, like Mississippi, we don't have wastewater sites. There's a lot of states that don't yet have sites on here. But, as you also did see, there are places that are starting to add more sites. And they're signing on with this wastewater scan. I mean, we have the CDC website, which has probably over 1,000 sites now. More and more of them are starting to hook up with these guys. And when that happens, it updates more frequently. We'll include more of these during the pandemic updates. And I will see you again later today for a pandemic update. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel down below. If you know anyone that needs a reality check, a wake-up call that COVID is not over and that it's rapidly rising and that flu is not much of an issue right now, by all means, share my channel and videos with them. I will see you all again later today for the pandemic update in just a few hours. Until I see you again next time, stay safe, everyone. Have a great day.